I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Everyone to the Manlius Planning Board. Today is June the 26th, and we do have one member who is online.
I'm here. Can you all hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you.
Welcome, Aaron. Okay, Aaron, I am being told by council that in order to vote, we do need to see your face, even though I hear your voice and I recognize you. We will at some point need to see your face when we're voting. Are you capable of doing that?
I am. The internet connection isn't great, so I'm going to leave it off for the most part, if that's okay. I tested it out earlier and it's better with the video off, but I'll turn it on to vote.
That'll be great. Thank you. Folks, the first item on our agenda is for approval of the minutes of our meeting that we conducted on June the 12th. Are there any requests for modification or change?
I had one. I know that it reflects on an updated site plan, but I just wanted to make sure we did talk about continuing that sidewalk to increase the walkability around the property of the Tullys. So if Lisa, I'm sorry, if you don't mind adding that back into the minutes, just so there's a record.
Any other requests for modification? Then I would entertain a motion to approve as modified. And
I'll second.
second by Valerie. All in favor? Aye. And we need to hear from you as well, Aaron. Is that an aye or an A?
Aye, that's an aye.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda, folks, is an application by Hogan Doctors LLC. This is not scheduled this evening for a public hearing. This is for both site plan and accessory use permits for apartments for residential use. This is at a project called Seven Pines, located at 8104 to 8110 Cazenovia Road. This includes 4 separate tax properties. Before we do anything, I think we proceed forward with Super.
Thank you. So we're going to get very used to these questions. We got a few of these. So the question: will post action create a material conflict in adopted land use plan or zoning regulations? No. Will the proposed action result in unique or intensity?
Some change.
Small impact.
Small.
Will the proposed action impair the quality or character of the existing community?
No.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause the establishment of a critical environmental area?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure, transit, like or walkway?
No.
Yes. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy that fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
Will the proposed action impact the existing public or private water supplies or public or private wastewater treatment? Will the proposed action impair the character or quality of the important historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic resources?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources such as wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? No. Will the proposed action result in an increase in the potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage process?
No.
Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources, health, and health? All of these having been answered by no or small action, I share entertainment and next.
I'll make the motion for a negative declaration.
Motion by Dudley, second by Arnie. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. Unanimous. Madam Secretary, did we properly do a publication of this public hearing?
Yes.
Are there any requests for a reading of that?
No.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to waive the reading of publication.
Thank you, Valerie. Second by Aaron. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Reading is hereby waived. I would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Motion by Ann,
I'll second.
second by Valerie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is hereby open. If there's anybody in the public who wants to make a comment about the Seven Pines, that would be the time. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Trevor Edmond. I reside at 4674 Westfield Road.
We did receive a letter from you.
I'm in the home behind one of the buildings. Primarily, I wanted to come, and I think, I presume there's been an updated application. There was an updated plan shared today. I want to thank Ms. Bill, along with the applicant for taking the time to meet and speak with me. Throughout this process, whether it's zone change and now the planning board process. Myself and a number of my neighbors stood in opposition of this project. Throughout the entire process, we spent a lot of time talking about the desire and need to divide the older homes in the neighborhood that we reside in from a change of use here that will have other residents potentially using our yards as cut through to Mill Run Park, the additional intensity of nice weekends of the parking lot, and the applicant and Mr. Niddle has agreed to install a fence which would well and issues we have. So provided the board is going to approve that if it's in the house, on behalf of myself, is appreciate the board forward with the project.
We have received updated drawings specifically enumerating the fact that this additional fence is going to be added to the project, and we're delighted to hear your position.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding Seven Pines project? Anybody that you?
No.
We do not. Now I will. So, second by Aaron, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is hereby closed. So we've seen the drawings, we've seen what's been coming through, we've seen complaints from a couple of the neighbors, we see revised plans resolving that issue entirely. I believe we're in a position to either approve or disapprove the site plan and the accessory use permits.
Can you look the record, the date of this last plan?
We revised 6/12/2023. So if we're going to entertain a motion, it would be with respect to the site plans dated June 12th, 2023, and received by us on June.
I just want to make a comment. I think the fence will work out. I think it's good to actually, for people who do move in there and walk there, just know that it is private property on the other side. And I guess my one question is, I would assume the fence would be maintained, stayed, etc., just like any other part of the property.
That's correct. Depending on the species, have to say that it'll be followed with that.
What side of the fence would be on the neighbor's side?
Oh, bad. We've had this discussion.
Sounds great.
We knew you would.
Thanks, Kim.
Anyone care to make a motion?
To go ahead and approve the Motion for the. Site plan, yes, that's where you can. Yes. Permanent. And
And we do want to do that on one. Okay, so your motion would include the granting of the accessory use permit for the apartment.
what do we do with part of? Nothing. Right, it's not part of this. It's just every.
It's just there. It's not part of the proceeding. We have a motion made by Ann, second by Valerie. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Approved unanimous.
I'm hoping that's all it is. It was not plugged in. There we go. All set.
Thank you.
Next item on our agenda is an application by Eastern Hills Bible Church. Property located at 8277 Casanova Road. It is scheduled this evening for public hearing. Concerning site plan amendment at the same address. Tax map number 117.2-1-37.1. Elsewhere. You can proceed forward with secret.
First question. Will the proposed action create a material conflict with adopted land use plan for zoning regulations?
No.
Will the proposed action result in the change in the use or intensity of use?
So, what? Depends on the day of the week.
Yeah.
Well, no.
Minimum.
Will the proposed action for the character or quality of the community?
No.
Will the proposed action have an impact on the environmental characteristics that cause these happen in the critical environmental area?
No.
Will the proposed action result in adverse changes in the existing level of traffic or affect existing infrastructure, like transit, bike, or walkway? No. Will the proposed action cause an increase in the use of energy that fails to incorporate reasonably available energy conservation or renewable energy opportunities?
No.
Will the proposed action impact the public or private water supplies or public or private water treatment?
No.
Will the proposed action have a character or quality for the historic, archaeological, architectural, or aesthetic reasons?
No.
Will the proposed action result in an adverse change to natural resources, wetlands, water bodies, groundwater, air quality, flora, and fauna? Will the proposed action result in increased potential for erosion, flooding, or drainage process?
No.
Will the proposed action create a hazard to environmental resources or human health?
No.
All of these questions being answered, no response in that, which are motion for negative secret declaration.
Motion clear. Second by Valerie. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And I do see we did get back a response from the county. And the county has informed us as well. No significant adverse community or county-wide implications. In fact, this particular project is actually going to be beneficial for the town. We're doing an awful lot of pervious, replacing it by grass. So instead of causing a problem with flooding, it's going to be the reverse. It's going to be improving the advantage on that particular parcel. Madam Secretary. We had a question yet. Did we properly publish notice of publication? And are there any requests for reading of that publication, please?
I'll make the motion to waive.
Motion by Valerie to waive it. Second by Arnie, all in favor?
Aye.
Uh, Would entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Motion by Ian, second by Valerie. All in favor? Aye.
Hi,
Public hearing is hereby open. Anybody wishing to speak relative to the site plan approval, site plan amendment for Eastern Hill Bible Church? Secretary, for anybody online? It's not. So I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Ian made it, second by Valerie. All in favor? Aye.
hi,
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing is hereby closed. I think we're at a point, unless somebody wants to have a discussion about this, I think we're at a point where we could make a motion relative to approval or disapproval of this site plan amendment.
I'll make a motion. I'll second.
Motion by Ann to approve it. Oh, so you were gonna be asking for.
That's what kind of recently. Yes, it's about it.
Okay.
It's the sign.
Motion by Ann, second by Valerie. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is hereby approved. Thank you. No, thank you. This is a nice project and we're gonna improve the looks of the community. Appreciate acceptance of the half off and a little bit of reverse. Environmental. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is an application by Cully's Good Times. This is scheduled this evening for a public hearing concerning an addition to the existing Cully's at the town center. This is tax map number 087-1-21.1. Madam Counselor, we do need to do secret.
Wants to see if they can. Yeah, well, the proposed action created a material conflict adopted land use plan for zoning regulations. Yeah. The proposed action results in extensive use or attempted use of land. The proposed action is a character of use. Proposed action has an impact on the environmental characteristics of property establishment of a critical environmental area. The proposed action results in adverse
There we go.
There you go, you're back.
Okay,
Excellent. Good job.
I don't,
We were just voting on secret. We've got 4 negative impact recommendations. How about yourself, Aaron?
I agree.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Secretary,
yes,
did we properly publish notice of publication of the public hearing?
there we go. It's working now. Yes, we did.
Sorry about that. Yes, I'll make a motion to
Motion by Valerie to waive the formal reading, second by Arnie, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Reading is hereby waived. I entertain a motion to open the public hearing. Motion by Ann, open the public hearing, second by Valerie, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is hereby open. Is there anyone here who feels the need or desires to discuss Holly's Good Times and the addition that they are putting on structure? Secretary, is anybody online? We have not. So I would entertain that motion, Ann.
second.
Second by Valerie. All in favor? Close the public hearing. Aye.
Aye.
Public hearing is hereby closed. Folks, we are talking most particularly about the revised site plan that is dated June 13th, 2023. We did that very quickly after our last hearing.
Yeah.
If you open the hearing from somebody to either approve or disapprove of the site plan that's submitted,
I will make a motion to approve the site plan unless anyone has comments on it. I like what they did. No, I like it. Yeah, I think it looks great. And I appreciate them listening to us, taking our concerns.
I like the fact that Aaron made a number of comments about doing things slightly differently and they always do it all. And I think it makes a difference in what was recommended safety wise.
I appreciate the effort that the applicant put forth, and I think the changes that they made will definitely enhance everything. And I see they added a few stairs after reviewing the grading. So I think that that's helpful rather than discover that during construction.
Okay, we have a motion made by Valerie. Do we have a second on it? Second by Arnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is approved. The amended site plan, with its addition, its small addition, is hereby approved. The next item on our agenda, which we will get to in one moment. This is an application by Woodland Hills subdivision known as the Hogue Lane Development. This is the 4th presentation before us of a 16-lot subdivision located at 5280 Hogue Lane, Fayetteville. It's all under one tax month number of 104-1-39.2. Good evening, Chris. Good evening. How are you? Good. How are you? Good, thanks.
So when we were last before this board, there were a number of items we had to do some homework on. I think we tried to hit those with our resubmittal. And what I recall was at the last meeting, we were talking about sewer and water capacity, which we provided letters on. Building envelopes and setbacks, which we revised the plan to show and building lots. We also addressed slopes and easements, and then the final issue was the wetlands, which we provided a letter from a professional as to the wetlands and the unimportant. So we tried to proceed forward with this board and give you the information you desire, and we're hopeful we can take another step and keep this application.
Sedan here, we have a problem. The problem is, we have been hearing for some time that they're gonna be revising all this wetland issue. And I'm seeing from the letter you provided that they're anticipating at some time that the wetland delineation is gonna be changing as well. The problem is, it hasn't changed yet. We have to go based upon the way it is now, and the way it's structured now. At some point in the last application, we saw you had worked around that. You had built around that wetland so as to avoid that issue. And I'm thinking, you don't want to sit here waiting until the federal government changes the delineations.
Well, that is very true, yes.
And I don't know, that's just my thought. Maybe I stand alone on this, but I think you need to work around it again.
Well, the one thing is, we didn't, we have a wetlands expert here who wrote the letter. I think the delineation, and I'm speaking out of turn, she probably speak better than me, and she will, about the wetlands and its classification previously. So if we could, or have her speak to that letter a little bit, give a little background, and then depending on how that goes, we'll need to maybe react a different way with that.
We will certainly hear from them.
Okay, great, thank you.
Did I presume you are Emily?
I am Julia.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. The letter I have.
That's not me.
Passive.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, look, yeah, I get out.
Yeah, just.
For the record, going back, one of our online subscribers is making an inquiry as to who that gentleman spoke was.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And although we know you, Mr.
I know.
Could you just
I
identify?
apologize, actually, I jumped ahead. I'm Christian Danaher, I'm an attorney at Hancock Justice.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry about that.
Yes.
Good evening. My name is Julia Brownhill. I'm a senior project manager at GZA Environmental, excuse me. I am a certified professional wetland scientist. I've been doing this for over 10 years. So pretty experienced with the regulations and procedures for water body delineation. I'll start over here very briefly. So a previous wetland delineation was done by another consultant in 2019. And what I did was I reviewed their findings and wrote a report, and then I conducted a site visit to see the site myself and concur with their delineation. If you can see down here at the bottom, there is a marked drainage easement that comes onto the property. And during my site visit, we looked, talked it over, and it's a series of storm water drainage from the housing development located to north or south. Yep, just want to make sure. And so what it is it's a catch basin that conveys water through this drainage easement onto the property, and it has what we call a preferential flow path. So water finds the easiest way to go somewhere. So over time, the water has flowed and it has gone through the site. And I want to make something very clear. This is not a wetland. This is a water course, which is different than a wetland. So it's a source of flowing water through the site. And then it ultimately comes to this juncture point, and then it kind of does a 90-degree turn, and there's a swale that runs off site to the west. And there's a pretty good sized culvert that runs under Churchill Lane. The time of the site visit, there's no water here. There's no water through the vast majority of this outflow, and there was a little bit of water flow from here to here. So that means it's intermittent, or it's not a continuous or perennial. It's not flowing year round. So it's only flowing if there's a stormwater event from either runoff or rain, So this is where the water from the housing development located to the south is conveyed through the site. So that being said, with current regulations, so without going into a whole discussion of what the regulations look like now and what they will look like in the future, the Clean Water Act that was passed, Clean Water Rule, that was passed in 2023, March of this year, was the most protective and stringent clean water rule that's been passed. And under that regulation, this would be an excluded feature because it's a stormwater feature conveying water in a seasonal flow. And that was our opinion, that was my professional opinion, and that was to be submitted and was submitted to the Corps for confirmation, which is done through a jurisdictional determination process. With the Supreme Court ruling in May, that has left the Corps with their hands tied because they cannot use the guidance in 2023. They can't use the 2015 guidance. They can't use the 2008 guidance. And the regulations are somewhere between 1986 and 2003 to be determined, because under the current regulations, you have to prove that there is a connection. It is adjacent to what's considered a TMW, or a traditionally navigable body of water. There's no stream on the site. There's no other connection other than this feature that effectively flows on the site, terminates, but does have an outflow to the west as needed.
What exactly did that May determination say in there?
Basically, the regulations that are in place right now are too restrictive and too overreaching for the EPA and effectively the Army Corps who does the enforcement, and that unless a wetland is adjacent to a TMW, so for example, Limestone Creek, everybody knows it is right here in your backyard. If there's a wetland adjacent to that creek, it is protected. If there's a break, there's no connection to that, then the wetland that's further upstream would not be right.
But it was sent back to the for new regulations.
So, yes.
That's the problem.
So the Supreme Court is the law of the land. So, and the biggest thing is that all previous tests of the Clean Water Rule use the concept called significant nexus, meaning could you prove that the water in this wetland would provide or had a significant nexus or connection to a body of water downstream. And with the most current ruling, even though the court was divided, that significant nexus test goes away. So the Corps and the EPA now have to come up with a new definition that does not use the word significant nexus. So it's very confusing, but that being said, it does not meet the criteria for a wetland. It has to have the 3 criteria, which is water, hydrology. You have to have hydric soils, which are soils that are inundated for more than 2 weeks during the growing season, and it has to have vegetation. And if you don't have all 3 parameters, then it doesn't meet the definition of a wetland. And Joseph, your question earlier, the process to define a wetland or to delineate a wetland will not change with the regulations. It's only our understanding if they're jurisdictional or not. So it still could be a wetland, but whether or not the Corps has jurisdiction over it is now, that's the question that's up in the air.
What have the applicant been trying to do before March? Getting it an exception?
Jurisdictional determinations. That is a letter from the Corps saying we've reviewed the project, reviewed the site, and we concur that this meets the definition. I believe it was B7 for excluded features. For that, but they would agree, saying this is a stormwater feature conveying water in an upland area, and this is not something we have jurisdiction over. So it would not require a permit to proceed forward with the project.
But it was mapped as jurisdictional.
It never was mapped as jurisdictional, and my best of my knowledge, the Corps has not been involved with the project until this point.
If it wasn't mapped, if it wasn't mapped as jurisdictional, why even go in the first place?
It's a common process when you're trying to go through a town site plan application where you're checking your box and say, are these permits required? And so that is a common process that the Corps goes through where, applicants for various things will go and say, do I need a permit in that jurisdictional, and it's good for 5 years, which is another big thing, because in my career, the regulations have changed 5 or 6 times already. So you are effectively grandfather claused in when that decision was made for a period of 5 years.
And looking at prior letter, clearly indicating that was a site walk in November of 2022. And the purpose was to verify wetland and water body delineation. And they were in fact, wetlands and water bodies were in fact delineated using the rules in effect at the time, the Corps of Engineers Wetland Delineation Manual. How are we supposed to get around it?
So
I
the
don't
previous,
See how we can.
the previous report referred to this as an intermittent water course. And there's a small, very small groundwater seep wetland that's off property and not part of this where the impact would be. And so we refer to it collectively as a water and wetlands, or wetland and water bodies delineation. So in that report, what he's describing is also, he used slightly different phrasing. He called it an intermittent stream or an intermittent flow. But effectively, I don't think he walked up this way and saw, because what we're taught to do is always to find the source of water. So you walk back upstream to see where it goes. And when I walk back upstream, you have a cul-de-sac with stormwater catch basins, and you have a culvert coming out from the end of the cul-de-sac. And to me, that is the source of the water. It's not a stream, or it's not another natural source. It is stormwater being conveyed onto the site from adjoining properties.
So you had gone back, or the group had gone back and said, I think you're not right. I think it's not. So there is a determination that it is. That if somebody walks through, just like they left out an important.
No, I think he was, because I don't know him, so I can't, but I reviewed what his findings were, and I agreed that there is a flow path that goes through here. But the source of it, he was calling it an intermittent stream. But you can't call it an intermittent stream if the source is stormwater. It's a point source of water being collected from within the cul-de-sac.
So in the last month, since January, what this team has been trying to do is have him change that designation about the intermittent stream, because that changes whether it's still.
Yeah, I mean, it
Does
doesn't.
that help me here? Am I asking the right questions?
You are.
Okay.
So-
And this is a lot. This is a lawyer
Sure.
talking into.
No,
And Jamie,
no.
our firm has the same situation on a couple of projects, but our hands are tied and we can't move forward. And we've been told by the Corps, right, where the water's been separated, they won't make that determination. Therefore,
They might have, if not for the Supreme Court.
Right.
Yes.
correct.
But-
So therefore, our projects are also the projects.
So at this point, it's one person would call it an intermittent stream, and without realizing or finding the source of the water. And if you, like I said, I followed it back upstream, and the source of water is stormwater. That's not a natural feature. So the Corps doesn't. Their intent is not to regulate roadside swales, ditches. That is what this is. I mean, it's stormwater being put through his property, and it ultimately doesn't even leave his property, because by the time it flows, it infiltrates into the ground, and it's not.
What's your experience been for? And over the last couple of months since this came out, are they just, we may never answer you, we may not, what's their position? Do you have any experience?
Yes, yeah, I have multiple projects that are in various stages of permitting and how to proceed, because when you have projects that are time sensitive, you are trying to get things done and you can't. I mean, their answer is, we don't know. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 months, it could be 2 years. And it depends also with the litigation that's happening. I mean, it's hard to litigate something that's been decided at the Supreme Court level, but
So what if something, if they come back and say, okay, we're ready to answer you in 6 months, has come down, like you say, right, like if you say, do this, they would say, you know what, we don't agree with this. We think it's, but I know what you're saying, I understand why.
Sure. And so I brought this project up to one of my counterparts at the Corps, and I said, how do I handle this? Because right now, they are not allowed to issue a jurisdictional determination because they don't have the guidance to report, like say, this is what we have jurisdiction over, and yes or no. So the only thing that they're doing is they're approving projects that have what's called a PJD, or preliminary jurisdictional determination, which is basically you say the Corps has jurisdiction and we are treating this like it needs to be permitted. And so that is an option that I feel uncomfortable making that advice because I don't like to permit something that's not jurisdictional, nor do I want to say I'm giving the federal government more power over something that they shouldn't. And that's not the intent and process of permitting. It's to protect natural resources. In this particular situation, you know, with this being within one of the overflow areas, there's not going to be a permanent impact. It's still going to capture that water that's being conveyed out to the site. It's not going to cause any issues. So that being said, there is a process under the nationwide permits. The impacts are below, so there's certain thresholds that are triggered. So you are allowed to impact up to 1/10 of an acre without having to do mitigation. So for mitigation, it's 1-to-1. If you exceed that threshold, then you have to mitigate a 1-to-1, sometimes a 2-to-1 ratio. In this particular case, we did a quick calculation. We're below that threshold. Excuse me, and you can proceed with this nationwide permit. You submit the project information, and it is authorized within 45 days. So there is a process.
But that would be saying that it is delineated and they are taking jurisdiction. over it.
Yes.
Yes. So and that's our struggle, because we don't think it is, talking to our professional. And we don't, that course, giving them that jurisdiction that we don't feel they have, that's why we hired this professional.
No,
But nonetheless, understanding that it's important for us to proceed forward. And if we have to, we can adjust this site to go under the 1/10 of an acre. But there's a time frame for which they have to respond, which I believe is 45 days. Or if they don't respond, it's deemed approved.
Yes.
So we can.
explain it, Steve. Am I talking too much?
No,
Okay.
no.
I mean, anyone else chime in, but I just would explain that procedure.
For the nationwide permit.
Yes, that's.
So, yep, so Corps has developed 57 different nationwide permits. And these are activities that they are considered low impact, common activities. So 43, for example, is residential development. Or excuse me, 38 is residential development, 43 is stormwater management. So there's 2 different nationwide permits. So the Corps as a district, and it's different per district, but in New York, this is the Buffalo district. They've said, here are 40 or 57 activities that happen on a regular basis. We don't need to provide significant regulatory oversight. So it's a submittal of the impacts, you know, it would be providing a letter saying, this is what we did from our site visit. Here's what it looks like on a map. This is what will be impacted. And we can say, and then there's additional requirements that you have to be compliant with the various general conditions of the permit. So one is making sure that there's no rare and endangered species impacts. And that's just for one example, but most of those conditions are very readily attainable. And then you proceed. So 45 days, because they're considered small projects, the Corps has established a 45-day period. And if they're not responding within 45 days, then you are considered authorized to proceed with the activity.
And how would your plan change if you went there?
I can go through the nuts and bolts of it. This one might be easier.
You may not have done it. Okay, I'll say.
This is lot number upside down. Here's a detention basin. this area in pink was previously avoided before this year. This is the overflow basin, so that's what's causing this impact. A year ago, we were avoiding this lower area, so the overflow basin lands right on the seep, and I'll call it the stormwater discharge. So that is 0.08. So a tenth of an acre got to be under that. So that's 0.08. And then we have 0.01. 0.01 over here is on lot 9. And then for the town's requirements, you need a 1-on-4 slope to be 25 feet away from the wetland. So we're pulling the wetland limit back 20 feet by disturbing 0.01. So that 0.01 gives you 25 feet. We have a retaining wall in there too, but it's 1-on-4, a wall, 1-on-4. And that's our new, that pink area, that represents the taking of 0.01. So 0.01, 0.08.
Essentially a
0.09.
retaining wall.
Yeah, retaining wall with a fence on the top.
On lot 9.
On lot 9, and it goes from, just to put it in
That's-
perspective, there's no walls down here. The way this works is the basin discharged here a year ago, and this was natural grade. Now we are capturing it in this overflow area, collecting it, storing it, releasing it. So that disturbance is an additional 0.08. So we are leaving this downstream section. We are leaving this upstream section. We are leaving the area between the discharge point of the seep and the disturbed area here.
If that solves your problem in 45 days, what's the downside? Why do you? I just,
It's another step in we just wanted to be transparent because
right, no,
we believe we're a victim of the government right
Yeah.
here.
I don't disagree with that.
We're being honest. We're presenting a
But
problem.
if this, in a normal
The challenge.
situation is, I would have gotten the response, they would agree, they would have a letter in the file saying, this is good for 5 years, this is not a jurisdictional feature, and don't need a permit from the Corps.
Right.
That would have been in a perfect world, and that didn't happen.
Is this a worse design? Is it, what's the downside? Are you worried that when it undergoes on engineering review, it's not as good as what you're presented, or?
I don't see any problems with it. I mean, Doug mentioned it too. You have other projects. We have anybody that's worked on civil engineering projects.
So we
come across this.
So we've, like the chairman said, right, I mean, we've gone in a different direction.
Yeah.
And I think the question Jamie is asking is, right, I mean.
And Scott, we've got an online request for you to identify who you
Oh,
are.
sorry, Scott Freeman, project landscape architect, Keplinger Freeman Associates.
Chris, this new case law, this is out of the United States Supreme Court, not the United States.
Correct.
And I'm presuming it's in the US report somewhere. I haven't seen that case. It's a May 25th, 2023 case. Is there a chance you could get it to our council?
Yes.
So that she could review it and possibly forward it on to us.
Right.
This
You probably will.
is big national news when it came out, and New York Times, nobody was carrying it because it was expected that they were going to rule in favor of the landowner. It was unexpected that they would take the term significant nexus out. I mean, that has been something that, at least, it doesn't matter what side you're on, everybody could agree that there needs to be a connection.
Yes, I think I read.
I'll get that to you. I'll get that to Jamie. So I guess what we're hearing from the board is to do the 45 days.
Well, I guess, let's move beyond that for a minute, right?
Okay.
So there's a whole project, no, I'm sorry, but something.
No, finish this and then I'll have some questions about the water in general, not anything to do with the core.
Because I can't be sure as we hear in various other meetings that there's no intent of this project. You know, it's appropriate. So what would, if you go this route, what would you see as what you want? You want this board of engineering, you know, our engineering consultants to do?
Definitely start, and I think we have a discussion on point. You have to review the plans that we have done. The town engineer review I don't know if he started or not, but we'd like him to.
I guess the point of that is while the next thing is the public hearings coming.
Yeah.
We have this review time that for 45 days, so while we have that time, we'd like to give Doug adequate time to review it if there's any
Well,
comments,
why don't you review column A or column B?
all of the whole project.
But no, I mean this, because they're different, right? And I don't know how much it impacts everything else. You're just like, well, it's engineer, everything else, I don't know if that's feasible. Look at everything else, but not that. I don't know. I'm not an engineer. If they wanna.
Seems like
So say, I mean, all they feel like they need to do is put a note to say that pending, approval, nationwide permit, like it doesn't change the engineering.
I think there is a chance that there could be significant change, right? So I mean, if you want us to go forward and review what we have at hand, we can certainly do that. And if,
But
you know,
if you go with this plan. it could be
yeah, because there's only one set of plans, right? So I mean, we can't review based on a note on a drawing, right? We would review on its own merit and review what we have in front of us. We can certainly do that, right?
I guess I don't know where the plans, how the plans may change or not change. Based on.
It might be a little, it might be a lot, right?
what with the current
With
wetland.
the
plan.
current delineating it under a tenth of an acre from the plans that we've already submitted. How, will the new plans be significantly different than what
No.
we've already presented? In our opinion, it will.
Okay.
No.
So we would like you to proceed.
Just to sum up, the basin has the same capacity, the outflow structures, same capacity, same location, the drainage swales, they're all in the same places.
So we would like the engineering to start, because we don't believe it's much of a difference from the change that we're making that we discussed with you tonight with regard to the 45-day permit. We'd like to get notice to involved agencies. We'd like, if there's a public hearing required, we'd like to start that process to get this proceeding forward.
So,
I think we're gonna jump the gun if we do that right now, but there's no reason we cannot move forward. There's no reason we cannot direct the engineer to start examining in more detail. And we can also examine more detail, in the current plans.
Can we identify involved agencies and?
no, we haven't done any of that. This has all been very preliminary. We weren't quite ready to do that, but, we can work on that by the next meeting. And then maybe talk about it next meeting, declare the agency.
Yes.
Unlisted action. I did it once before, but not recently. And identify probably and we'll send out notices. But let's, I'd like to discuss that with the chair. We haven't even, we're not gonna get out there, we're not sure what's going to come tonight.
Sure.
And, but
One other minor point, Julia, we spoke about this outside. It could take up to 45 days, but there could be comment that
There could be, in my experience, respond.
well, and I notice that. Yes.
Yes.
We'll all be within time frames to work any of it's going to be public hearing.
Right.
Which I don't think is going to be a great idea until Doug does the engineering, review. I think the one thing that we want to make sure is there's a lot of public interest in this, that has been over time. The concern of going out on a limb on bringing a Supreme Court decision. I'm not so sure would go well for this project, because that's almost like what. That decision.
But we're not asking for the board to make.
I know. Well, if you change the plan. But
the plan's not, there's minimal changes to the plan. Everything's the same except for the disturbance area.
And it will resolve in.
I misunderstood. So getting back to. What we first said. But.
Can I ask something? Chip Boswell, something. Can I ask what your, what is the concern that I'm hearing the board think that there's a major change or at least a change when by getting this report or this sign up from the Corps in 45 days, that doesn't change the plan. It doesn't change the plan. So I don't understand why the board thinks that there is a change to the plan by us getting a letter that changes. the plan.
There's a change to the plan, right?
Yes, but-
From what's been submitted.
There is a change, but essentially nothing material. But understand that the board does not have that change, because we just worked on it, to try to
What would
address
be the
this.
change? What would be
The walls. The retaining wall on lot 9.
Lot 9, that's one wall's been added, all the pipes, the road, the grades, they all stay the same except for one wall to hit the one.
Right, actually, maybe it's better to see it overall, Scott.
We're not changing the bonds, so it's the same capacity. This, this is before, a year ago, we had a drainage swale going this way and this way. We had a wall here a year ago, we moved the wall a little bit, but in the recent set, we got rid of the wall. So the recent set got rid of the wall because we were making the assumption that November was a change. They made a change, so we added a wall right there. That's the only change. There was, we modified some contours right there. And then we've reduced some of the contours in 2 other areas.
Does that make sense to you and from an engineering standpoint? Or, I know we're not going to spot it, but what he's saying in basically.
Well, I thought we had agreed, right, that they've asked us to initiate a review, right? And we'll review what we have in front of us
Is this?
on its own merit.
what's on front of us? Or is that, or are you submitting
This
it?
is, if you have a whole set of drawings, Doug, just in construction language, I could take the grading plan and I can cloud this and say this is a revision for one drawing, the grading plan with the wall.
So I think what Chris said is, right, you've got a set of drawings. They want us to review it on its own merit, and that's what we'll do, right?
Plus this. Which is different.
With the amended, that does not include the wetland. That doesn't include the 1/10 of an acre disturbance. The current plans submitted are pre the recent government ruling. So those assume that the wetlands are gonna go away, which we thought they were until recent.
I don't think we could review both, right? They're two
What
they're
is?
two separate drawings, right? I mean,
So what I'm saying is I want to reissue this drawing and update the set for you. We want to update.
Can we just
current
update a
condition.
page?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Just one
saying.
page.
Is it a one-page update?
Or not?
because of the rule?
The grading, it's the grading plan, which,
Well, we just want to change the grading plan from what's you have.
So you're just swapping out the page.
technically it shows on the other pages too. So Doug needs a whole, I'll give you a full
Okay.
set. It's a revised set. with
whatever you
this
want to
set.
do,
Fine, we will. give
Doug's
you a
saying
set.
that set, we're this set, so we'll give him a new set.
We'll give you this set,
Yes,
which is what we're submitting to the Army Corps for the 45 days.
if Doug doesn't want to do 2 reviews, one without the wetland disturbance, one with, but that's
Can I
Doug's
ask-
question.
One quick question. Okay, to ask this question. Sort of related, sort of not. The fact, we've always heard that this was a natural stream. The one coming from, and it's in the letter, it says the north, but it's the south, correct? The Churchill Port.
Yes, so it says the stormwater north and onto the site, so the flow is coming,
Flow
is flowing to the north.
It's
but
flowing
from the
north,
south.
south.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So we've always heard that there was a natural stream that came through there and then through the swale down Churchill.
That's right there.
So now that you're saying that it's not natural at all, it's stormwater from Churchill Port
So this,
is the origin.
correct, so yeah, so I mean, it has taken preferential flow path and does have the appearance of a stream feature. It's not what you think of a
It's a
ditch, it's
stormwater
not,
stream.
perfectly, it's a storm, it's, the water is flowing the easiest way
So
it
it's not
can.
coming anywhere from the east.
Correct.
It's
I think that
source, it's its source, that's really
Yeah.
the issue.
The water is coming from here and
I
then.
just wondered if now if it's stormwater dependent rather than just natural flow, does that change anything for you guys as far as knowing that it's stormwater dependent and having big storms? I know you said before in the past that these ponds would help it further on down.
Right.
But is there anything that you need to change coming from Churchill Court onto
No.
your property because of stormwater?
I mean, this will capture it, right?
Yeah.
If there is, this will capture it. You know, you're making a basin, so it will capture it.
That's what I wanted to ask while you were here. So I just
Sure,
wanted to
no,
see
that's a really good
clarify.
question. No, that is, and that's where it becomes, looking at the difference between a stormwater feature versus a natural feature. And that is a big distinction from a regulatory and just from understanding that this was not a stream.
How the flow would work.
Yes,
Change
yeah. Yeah,
why it's there
exactly.
sometimes, why it's not.
Exactly.
All right, well, I'd like to, a couple things. I'm not surprised to hear that it's potentially a stormwater discharge coming from an offsite source. That's not surprising, and I think we see that stuff a lot more often than we realize. I've not seen the drawing, obviously, that you brought to the meeting tonight, and as far as reviewing different sets and that kind of stuff, I know that I'd like to see a complete set with the, whichever way you decide to go and whichever, some of the audio has been a little bit spotty, but understanding what you're submitting, I'd like to see a set, not just one sheet, because it impacts all the other drawings in the sheet. And as long as I've got the floor here, something that I've been seeing come through on a lot of these drawings is on lots 9, 10, and 11, it looks like, or just between 11 and 10 and 10 and 9, there's stormwater from the road, catch basins from the road being discharged into the lots. And I would have thought that would have all needed to have gone into the basin for treatment. So I'm curious as to why those weren't captured in the road like everything else and conveyed into the basin. That's it.
The answer is.
I got a point, where is she? You're talking about the easement between lots 10 and 11 and 9 and 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, the purpose of those was to capture the side yard runoff in the side yard and run it to the front, run it to the street. And the reason for that was we were we didn't want to discharge to the backyards because we would never be able to create a rear yard swell that went into the basin. If we didn't have those side yard catchment areas, the water would go into the ravine and
Okay.
be untreated. So it's kind of a,
So it is going from the side yards into the road catchment, not the other way
Yes.
around.
yeah,
Okay.
we took it literal. I mean, on a lot of projects, sometimes you look at little areas and you don't address them. On this project, we decided
Nope.
to go the extra yard to.
I didn't look at the inverts. Okay. I didn't look at the inverts. Thank you.
No problem.
Do you meet all bulk regulations and front yards, lots, et cetera?
150-foot street, 40,000 square feet.
Nothing needs a variance as far as.
There was one little area we show on there, but we're gonna make it easier. It's only 4 or 5 feet. We're gonna take it off on the one set that's redistributed. We had a couple, we actually had 3, long story short, but we went over with the design team, we just reduced. I mean, this lot 9 is the most challenging lot. And it actually has a 3,500 square foot first floor. So that's not a small buildable area. You could build a decent house on that buildable area.
What are you asking about? Just conventional subdivision lots?
Yes, you're right. And that was submitted formally in the form of the plat plan from our surveyor. That would be just the drawing that Doug would probably started the review, looking at the easements, with the setbacks and all the lot criteria
Doug, July 10, we'd be able to get a preliminary engineering review. Please.
Seems a little ambitious, but maybe some comments.
Yeah, we'll get on it.
We'll give you a full set of plans tomorrow.
I have another silly question, probably,
Last
but
15 days. A little bit tight.
Shoot.
oh, just to double check, just because the development is off Cove Lane, which the nature of the street is that all the houses there are Cove Lane. So I just was curious, are lots 11 and 1, are the driveways and everything? How do you envision the houses oriented, like will driveways be off of the new road as
11,
opposed to? Hope
11
Lane?
is off Hogue Lane. It's tough to see, but if you go to the layout thing, you'll see it, but it comes off Hogue Lane. And then 1 comes off of Road 1. Side load for lot 1. On
Sorry,
the east side,
11, you're saying
11 is a front load coming
from the
from
new-
the
new road.
from the new road.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they were gonna be oriented like along Hope Lane or oriented to the new development. That's what I just wondering.
No, everything's on Hogue Lane, and when the builder, when these are built, they're not all gonna be neat rectangles, they'll
Yeah.
change a
yeah,
little
no,
bit,
yeah.
it might be side load.
Right.
Traditionally, they're uphill, they might be downhill.
But
they
they'll be
might-
oriented. to the road
Yeah, we're not going,
development.
nothing's going on.
I'm just wondering whether we have enough time to really get it all reviewed thoroughly. It's possibly suggesting moving it to July 24th instead of July 10th. What is your preference, Chris?
I'd like to give more time to review it, and really, I would like to say is if something jumps out, let us know right away, and we could work on it.
Done. July 24th.
Doug needs to relax.
Okay. All right. So if you're okay, we're gonna
Yes.
schedule this for July 24th for a report from the town planning board and its engineer and possibly from its legal department.
And I'll get that case to.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is an application by CNY Land Trust. This is on today for an initial presentation for site plan amendment. Property located at 7213 Woodchuck Hill Road. That's at number 101-1-1. Is there somebody here on behalf of the Land Trust?
Yes, hello. I can't do this. I want to share my screen. Is there anything that I should share immediately? Or we'll choose something.
My first question was, I don't see a formal survey.
Can I introduce myself real quick? I did do a formal introduction. So I'm Simon Solomon. I'm the executive director of the Central New York Land Trust. And I brought a couple people with me tonight. I have a board member, Andy Ramsgaard, and I have board member Jane Rice. And I also want to acknowledge our fans in the stands. So we have some Woodchuck Hill Friends Group people here, just sitting right over there. They're just here tonight to show their support for us. So I can go into a little presentation unless you want to just jump right to it.
No, please do.
Okay. All right. So we're here tonight to invest in the White House that's on the Woodchuck Hill property. It's one of the old Dignity homes. It's a preserved property that we've owned for the past 30 years. And there's a theme here, investment. So we see this as an investment into our organization. We're a 50-year organization. Believe it or not, we've never had a physical office space outside of, let's say, a closet at the community foundation, or where we're currently residing now in City Alice. We're paying $2,000 a month. We see this as an opportunity to invest in ourselves as an organization. We've invested in Oswego County and Onondaga County for quite some time. We've saved more than 3,500 acres of land. We have 51 reserves, and as I said, and the Community Foundation of Central New York sees this as an investment as well. They've sponsored us with a grant for $180,000 solely to invest in that house as our future office space. We can't touch that money until the county manager approves our application. But we're ready to go, and we're here tonight to answer any questions that you may have. And we're just trying to invest. So if you have any questions, please.
I do have one immediately. And this particular parcel of property was in front of us about a year ago.
Yeah.
Seemed to be one of the major concerns was parking. And where the parking was, would there be sufficient parking? And if I recall correctly in your application, it said that there may be occasions where there are as many as 50 to 100 people. And so parking is a major concern. I'm really looking to see a site plan delineate parking so that it won't become an issue.
Yeah, and Andy Ramsgard can certainly talk about the parking, but I just want to make one mention right now. So we were in front of the board about 4 weeks ago for a permit to operate and do our annual event in August on that site. And it's an event where we anticipate up to 200 people. So we worked it out with codes, we got approval. So big event wise, we have lots of meadows out there. So we're able to park typically in those meadows. But for day-to-day activities, like our day-to-day visitors or our day-to-day staff, I'm going to let Andy talk.
Right, so we only have a need for 3 offices. Currently, our offices are in City Alice, which Simon's talked about. We are a 501c3 with the shoestring budget. Almost everything that we do is with volunteer. So to speak to your earlier comment about the survey, we have dozens of surveys that date back to 1939 on the property. We don't have anything that is within the last 5 years. We have looked at the survey to do it for this property. It's going to cost us about $3,500. That $3,500 is one that we don't have this one station. We are literally a shoestring budget. However, if the board approves the special permit to be able to provide the offices at this location, we then tap into the grant that is, we received, and it'll be a little under 3.5% of our budget just to do the survey. We have old surveys which provided for you. We have done a markup for where we to provide accessible spaces at the office. Currently, it's an old farmhouse. It dates back well over 100 years. We have enough square footage there, and we work with codes to look at making the building accessible to provide so that we can be work as a legitimate office in that space. We need to provide accessible parking. Currently, as it exists at that house, the driveway is around the rear of the property to the south side, where the garage is underneath on the building. If it was just for our employees, there's plenty of room off of that driveway that breaks off the house, but it does not allow us to provide the accessible routes that's necessary for us to purchase an office space that complies with PDA as well as the office requirements. So we are proposing as part of the project is to use an existing cut wall which shows up on the site plan, so we can have a driveway to the front of the house, which is what faces Woodchuck Hill, and then provide an accessible entry into the house, as well as all the accessible items we have to provide inside the building. Ideally, we're asking for the board to review the project. We're challenged in our budget to be able to provide, produce that survey within the last 5 years until we get the funding from the community grant. We're happy to do that and provide that and an exact document that mimics exactly what we've shown on the site plan for that particular house, for that house. We've never had 100 cars. We've never had anything like that exists on this particular site as part of the preserve. The preserve's been there for almost 30 years. It's, I believe we've got all of our members of the Friends of Woodchuck Guild who can testify that there's never been that many people at the preserve at that particular time. There may have been walkers, that sort of thing. There's never been that quantity of cars. We are, and we have been granted a special permit for our major fundraiser, our one fundraiser of the year, which is coming up, which are all invited to. Which is August 12th. August 12th. We've received approval from the town board just for that day to have what we anticipate. Hopefully, we're going to get 200 donators, hopefully to further our cause in the more than 50 preserves, 30 over 3,000 acres we have. We chose this particular spot because it's central to our service area. The majority of our properties are in the county, and they also a little bit in Oswego and some people, but it's centrally located for us to be able to serve all these businesses. So that's basically a nutshell for everything.
Yes,
Cindy, yeah, Lisa.
good evening. My name is Cynthia Durham. I am not a member of the board. I am just a volunteer for the land trust working at Woodchuck Hill. I was here for the last meeting several months ago when there was when someone was interested in turning the barn into a shelter for abandoned farm animals. At that time, regarding the parking, we were concerned because the woman who was making that proposal was talking about having school buses of children come into the area. This is off the table. We're not anywhere near that kind of a plan, nor do we plan to. This is specifically to use the white farmhouse for office space for the Central New York Land Trust. I'm not sure how many employees.
We have 3 full-time staff.
All right, so you see, we're not looking at a large parking lot for 3 full-time staff.
But your application indicates that there will be some minimal hosted events and guided educational walkways with occasions of 50 to 100 people.
Sure, and the preserve can accommodate that. I mean, I wouldn't expect that on a daily basis or even a monthly basis. I come from an environmental education center, so I was the executive director of the Rogers Center in Sherburne for 10 years. And we were an environmental education center. We ran program after program after program. That's not our intent with this preserve. Our intent is to have our office space out of there. We'll have occasional bird guided hikes, plant identification walks. There's a children's program that happens a couple times a week. 50 to 100, we just want to be honest that we might hit that threshold, but we don't expect that on a typical basis whatsoever. And that parking, we can easily accommodate 50 to 100 people on property right now as it is.
The other issue at the time that we came before the board before was that there's a small cottage on the property. And we were concerned that if someone was dwelling in that building, that the traffic in and out of the land trust would prohibit the potential for emergency vehicles to proceed down that driveway. Well, that cottage is not going to be inhabited, so we don't have to worry about access to that cottage and anyone who's living there. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and just to get back about the parking, we do have expansive meadows out there. We've already been mowing those down for our special event on August 12th. And it's just grassy meadows, so we would never be putting asphalt down there or anything like that. It's level.
I have a couple comments. My name is Erin. I'm on the board, as you probably have figured out. So I understand the financial difficulty with obtaining a full survey of the entire property, given the acreage. But I do want to see some grading in and around the building with the parking. I would offer that for the board, rest of the board to consider. Especially when it comes to handicap spaces, we want to make sure that we have the correct slopes and that the ADA access meets the standards. I guess you're coming through a current cut in the wall, the stone wall. Are there any historic implications for this type of work?
That wall being rebuilt, it's been down.
Okay. And then with regards to the access to the site, I've been there once or twice, and I think I parked way in the back by the edge of the trees. I'm not sure, it was years ago, but if you have, I would like to see how the existing parking for the other people that use the site as visitors that go walking on the trails and stuff, where they park and how that relates to this. And then if bringing in this type of use, I think that we do need to see the correct access and plan for any emergency vehicles that might need to come in here. If there was a problem or an emergency in the building or fire trucks, that kind of stuff, I think that we would want to make sure that they could get in and out and turn around and do all that kind of stuff. So I get that you don't want to go further than you need to budget wise and level of effort wise, but I'd like to see a little bit more of the property and how all this kind of stuff works. I think that it's a good start, but I can't really take anything further without more information.
Okay, so we did meet code compliancy for our special event for police and fire with the current drive situation. I'll just make that mention.
And Peter Amster again. We do have issues out at the property. We have issues at the property. One of the reasons for us to relocate our offices there is to have a central location, but also to provide a presence, because the home has not been rented out or been occupied for well over 5 years. Currently, we have break-ins. We've got graffiti on the walls. Come in and even though it's legal now, we still find joints everywhere. Kids keep breaking doors, breaking windows, accessing the house. So I don't want to get sidetracked with the rest of the property. What the proposal is to get permitted for the use of the residence for the office space. There are, I understand the concerns want to look at the broad brush of a giant piece of property. That's great. That's not what we're asking for. And we will run out of time in what we have for this grant. So we have a short, all that work has to be completed before the end of the year for the grant. And otherwise, poof, it goes away, it doesn't happen. So we need to focus on what's appropriate as part of this application. And think about a preserve that's been there for 30 years. We can answer those other questions as we go through the process, but we want to stay focused on what the issues are with this particular request, which is to turn residents into the office spaces for a 501c3.
If you take down the applicant's screen so I can see the group. Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to make one more comment. After meeting with John Deere actually visited the site out there. He was very excited about the opportunity. Some of you may know we also own Three Falls Woods and Old Fly Marsh, all within very close proximity to the Woodchuck Hill parcel. We've been experiencing vandalism after night, dark issues at Three Falls Woods as well, and we see this as an opportunity, like Andy mentioned, as having more of a presence in and around the Manlius area. We have a gate at Three Falls Woods that once we're in our office at Woodchuck Hill, we'll be opening and closing that gate nightly. Just like we expect that which I feel, I think long term, we probably have more control of that property. And make sure at nightfall that gate's closed so that there's not trespassers causing issues. But with us being located in Minneapolis, it makes sense.
Do you have any plans to show lighting and signage?
Not as at the moment.
No site lighting around the building if you're, I mean, especially considering you're having problems with unwanted use?
The building already has, some exterior fixtures. We don't have, our goal is to tread very lightly on the land, and not do anything more than absolutely is necessary for the preserve to operate. The building will have its lights that will, some of them will remain on internally inside the building for security. But we don't want to light this up at all, to an extent.
I'm hearing what you're telling me, and I'm listening. And I think that the type of project you're intending to do is a very good project that would be very beneficial for our township. And I'm rooting for you. But when I'm hearing that you don't have the funds to do a survey, which is mandated by our town moving forward, I'm only one voice here, but I'm saying we've got a problem. We can't give you shortcuts to the extent that we don't have it in front of us, what you're doing. Now, I've looked at the old file, and Control Land Survey did a bunch of surveys back in 1988. They did one survey fairly recently in 2019. The Control family has been doing surveys here in the town of Manlius for forever. This is the third generation. I would tend to think that if you're looking to have an inexpensive way of doing it, go back to the same one who has been doing this time and time again, and they would probably give you a decent rate, especially in light of the fact that you are a 501c3 charitable group.
Well, we did.
But-
We did.
Both.
We both have. We've talked to the crowd. We know what the number is to do the survey. And to go that route, we want to commit to following all the rules. But to get down to the wire at the end of the day, we still have to get the approval to change. So, and we're committed to providing all the documents that are necessary.
We don't need to change these sections.
But you're
There was a lot of going back and
yeah,
forth.
I misspoke.
What kind of approval contingent upon presentation of the formal survey, even with a certain period of time? So that you're not cutting, I fully respect the decision you're demanding. You make an exception, you have to, it's.
Well, to date, we have never done a conditional approval. And the reason for that is we want to make sure everything is properly in order. We get full review of everything that we need in order to make certain that what we're doing is appropriate for the town. And I'm thinking it is, but I'm thinking it is, and I'm not seeing a survey that's going to tell us. Again, I'm only one voice.
Salmon, how long would it take you to get a complete survey?
I'm gonna say probably 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Probably, 4 to 5 weeks. Yeah, so we're under the gun a little bit time frame wise. That's why we did submit our application so quickly. We are hopeful that it's going to be approved and stand in front of you tonight. Because there was a concern that this was not going to be allowable for the survey aspect. But we wanted to get this initial presentation. You're going to tell us that we need to kick it back and we need to get a survey. By all means, we'll jump on that and get going. But that does delay us by almost. No fault of yours.
So if you
This site plan
The report from the survey, yep, that's a 14-bit survey that was done, an initial survey by Gary Cottrell in 1979, it's the note holds. So, it's,
And I,
Are you familiar with this?
yeah, this is what we submitted. This is 1979. Which is. Yeah. So you got it down.
the backup to that,
Oh, there was a revision, yeah.
The revision is, most accurate, it's pretty recent.
so
Why does it say?
because in 2019, we were stressed as an organization because of the break-ins to the cottage, to the house. We were trying to decide, what do we do with these properties? Because there are 3 buildings on the property. There's the farmhouse where most of our offices. There's the barn, that is, further in the property. There's a defunct, cottage, is what it's called. We had, because we are not land, we're not about buildings, we're about land and preservation, forever wild land. We get gifted properties, and when we get gifted a property with a building on it, it's almost like it's a millstone around our neck. Because we don't have the funds or the ability to manage a building that would be out there for rent. So in 2019, we explored going back to the trust, of course, with subdividing the property and then selling just so that we wouldn't be burdened as an organization, because we don't have even the money to tear the buildings down. To remove a building, to do the proper asbestos report, asbestos removal, and to tear down a building, it's about $50,000. That breaks the bank in terms of our budget. Long story short, after 2019, the court rejected the ability to subdivide the property so that we could at least unload those houses and those pieces. So we went back and said, now we pursued grants, which we have contingent grant right now, as Simon had said, and we've also pursued some private money for the removal of what everybody knows is the cottage, which is the bunkhouse, further off the map. So to pursue that as a demo, we don't have the money for that. So if you will accept the survey from 1979, which is what the 2019 is based on, as a record document to use, then we can proceed and give the appropriate site plan that Aaron had requested with topography. If that's fine, if that works, that helps us and complies with what you're requesting.
Well, no, I guess what I would say is, I hear that I'd like to take it under advisement with the chair. I want to look at directly at what our requirements are, what's waivable, what kind of concerns I'm gonna have if we waive it, right? You're going up, the land trust. So, but if you,
Well, we don't want to do everything. That's
I get it.
that's our.
But I think, if there's further discussion, with the chair, does anyone have an issue with that? Or if you want me to not even go there.
No, I don't. Whatever you do,
I
I
think
think
that's-
within the rules, most efficiently.
Right. Then your plan would be to submit it. Something, what, more to scale or?
No, and all these drawings are to scale. It's taken from the reference document.
Very
that
small.
I can- Well, so that's an easy reference. To have at whatever scale, that's just part of the drawing.
How how are you responding to that request for the topography?
We certainly,
What would do it?
we'll have them control, go out and add the topography to the survey. We would localize the topography, we only do within, let's say, 100 feet around the perimeter of the house, or whatever captures the proposed work for the driveway.
But to clarify, this 2019 survey, it's a valid survey done by him, or
I
is
don't know why we stand the,
it like that? That would be very helpful to me, because I mean, I'm inclined to say it might be current now, but 2017. And then we just add to it, is he gonna take his for information only survey and add something to it? I don't, you know. And number one, then number two, does everyone agree they want that? That's a plus the topography of the surrounding area.
It wouldn't be just, I mean, the topography around the building and around the proposed parking, I think is necessary for them to complete the requirements of the site plan submission, which are outlined in our code. You know, when we want to see those boxes ticked in the code, as far as what's to be included in a site plan. And I understand that, you know, you're kind of looking for the blessing of this to get to that point. But given the larger, you know, use of the site, I still would like to see the edges of pavement, edges of whatever for the areas back further where people park. Because I think that it is important for the board to be able to review the site as a whole and the uses and the access and all that kind of stuff, not just for the dwelling that's going to be converted into your offices, but where your people come in and park to hike and where they, you know, park in the back. And I don't have any issue with parking in the fields for events. I think that that's, you know, that's great. But, you know, it's not just the building and what you're doing. And I know that you're trying to focus this in almost phases, if you will. Maybe that's not the right word, but you're really just trying to focus your efforts on what's being used. But, you know, I think that in order for us to evaluate that, we kind of need to get a larger picture of what the use is of this property and how people are parking and using it. And like I said, you know, fire access, ambulance access, by opening up the development a little bit more into this broader use, you're kind of opening up the site into being treated a little bit more formally. And so we really kind of need to see all those things covered. Thank you.
Okay, so it sounds to me like you're going to consider the survey. And we need to go back and do our homework with the updated site. Is that correct?
I mean, that's my opinion, is whether legally the attorneys want to talk about surveys and applicability for boundary survey and stuff, but I can't evaluate the site plan until we actually have a site plan before us that meets the requirements of the site plan submissions that's outlined in it.
Right, I think, I don't know if, you know, the board has clarified this issue of, you know, parking in the field for events, and should, you know, maybe it would be just finding popular, you know, every Saturday to be. I don't know.
no, the town has a requirement. That if more than,
For the special use permit, we do have the code requirement that for any anticipated attendance over 100 people, you need to have a permit with code. And we anticipate our annual event this year, August 12th, will have somewhere between 100 and 200 people, which is why I had to go in front of the town board a couple months ago.
we're not going to be requesting any other permit for that many people.
No, this is a once.
Right, but not 100, but 25, 50, you know, I don't.
So
You guys have a gauge of how many cars you get out there in town? Say 25 to 35, sure.
I think when you talked about 100 people, I think that's 2 school buses.
We're not having school bus.
That's the only time you get 100 people, when you get a school bus.
Can you turn it, can you get a school bus in there and turn it around and get it back out? We don't,
Yes.
but we can't tell any of that from what has been shown.
I mean, I don't think we were really going to promote school access and school programs necessarily. We're not looking at it being an environmental education center. We're looking at just moving our office to a current reserve that has a hiking trail on it.
So if you had other events in the future, you'd probably, large events, you'd probably go through the same process.
Wait,
You did already
okay.
with the template.
Exactly.
Or use another reserve. We have 50 reserves. So next year, we're already doing our annual event in-house in
Oh,
Skinny Atlas. We're not even doing it. We're tired of renting tents, tables, chairs.
Yeah, okay. That's what I'm very curious on.
I feel sympathy for you.
No, it's okay.
I understand what you're trying to do, and if we want to help you.
Well, it sounds like there's a path to success here. We just have to do a little bit more work.
There can be, and we're only gonna do-
Yeah.
Just keep working somewhere.
Well, okay, with that being said, let me just present this 50 years of the Assumption Air Land Trust. I'll leave Lisa, and you can pull this in the hall. Okay, so do we need to resubmit through Lisa, to get that on, or can we set it?
Well, we're gonna get back to you.
Okay. Fair enough.
We're gonna review and determine whether or not something is valuable or not.
And then we'll try to delineate what we need a little bit more.
Okay, that'd be helpful.
Should they be going to control in the meantime or wait for that?
I would find out with Michelle if you can do one without the stamp on it.
That's gonna be my first question.
Mr. Bassett, why would you want to speak to us?
Oh, geez.
Because I actually talked to him from, and I located and got him to produce that map. When I did so, and when he finally went through his files, dug very loud, there's that map. He stamped that, having grown up with the foot of his father Jack. He did not want the map to be relied upon in a transaction where they did not get paid for a redate of the map, or they did not want the map to be relied upon in transactional setting without they didn't want any liability, any reliance on the map. So he put that stamp on, and thereby
Which is causing us to have to want to
causing this dilemma.
Yes.
So my perspective, the question is, could that map be modified in a way that did not necessitate a complete redate of the entire parcel described on the map, but instead focused on the area that someone mentioned around the house itself, showing the projected parking area for that house? And would that be less expensive than the quote, I guess, that Mr. Greenberg is saying for the redate of the full redate? I don't know.
We're going to talk about that, and it's a possibility that 2019 would work if you can do. Things we have already.
Say you had
Light year, not.
say you had approval for this, when would you be able to get money to have the survey done?
Okay, so, and I'm in the office scale, and he's not in the office scale. That check has been come to us. It's just earmarked that it's contingent to spend it until we receive town meetings. So could we front the money? Sure, we could front the money. It's not ideal. We'd rather keep that $3,500 towards additional investment into the house, because we're not convinced 118 is enough, probably that fundraise for additional, or just have the board support that. But we're ready to go. We're ready to move forward with this. And like Andy said, the expectations that Community Foundation wants to see the money off the books by 12/30. So, we probably have 3 or 4 months of work in the house alone. Okay.
Jamie, we put it on for July 10th.
Well, think that if we have to make the determination, maybe this has to get us an answer from Mr. Control, about maybe taking that off and. then that-
Unfortunately, Gary's mother, Dawn, died, so probably there had been. Whose heartstring could be talked to get this meant up deal.
Almost twice. I understand what you're saying about it, but I may find that we probably need a finding about this next current.
You won't take that stamp. Without.
Money.
Yeah,
How much? Maybe a little.
so he's not certifying that to anybody as
That's,
it stands.
I get it.
With it.
We're not asking to certify it. Asking to-
He has his professional license stamp on it. So it is, I don't know.
But
Don't know how.
he's restricted us.
I know it's, he does his-
Right, understood. So just the,
How hard is that gonna be for him to remove?
it's electronic, so it's gonna be a click. Right, well, so the answer is.
So we're not asking you to do the survey, saying do the survey.
Okay, so- Certainly, if you need that, if I made that call, I will make that call again.
It's a little different though. It's not for a current survey, right?
Right, we're just asking for the document that's already done. So,
Dated, what date it is.
Okay, we need to move on. We've got more.
Thank you.
calendar on. Did you want it? We keep it on the calendar for July 10th?
Yeah, please. 24.
Yes, and so we need to come back with an updated site plan and an understanding of where the stands with respect to survey.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so
Thank
we can get information to Lisa, she'll get it to us about this, and then we'll try to. Can you have, by the way, you were saying it's 1979 survey?
So he redated, so if you follow through his notes, the original, you'll see that it's a 1979 survey, which he redated for 2019.
But you have 70.
The 70, it is this, we don't have a copy of the 79 without that information. Piece on it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is an application for a special use permit. This is kind of a renewal application. The only difference is they're changing the party to this. The other people have moved. We are new applicant. We have heard from our code enforcement officer. This is an application for 80 Saintsville Road, Kirkville. This is that area that is parallel to the train tracks. And our town code officer tells us that there have been no complaints, no violations, and neighbors are content with this. It's his recommendation that we renew this for a 7-year period.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Valerie, second by Tony, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously approved. Last item on our agenda is to hear from the town board. More particularly, Deputy Supervisor Rollinger concerning design standard guidelines.
So, as you all know, the comprehensive plan is wrapping up. We have the public hearing on Wednesday. We expect to have a final determination sometime in July. The next step in the overall planning process is a zoning code review to make sure whatever's in the zoning code matches with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. And one of the things that we're hoping to do with that is to change the style of our zoning from a very use-oriented zoning to more what's called form-based code, which is more the look of the building, kind of very much in line with what you just deliberated on 7 times. That if it looks the same from the outside, it appears it's an apartment or an office. That kind of permitting those kinds of adjustments is what we're hoping would evolve out of the revised zoning code. In order to do that, it's been recommended that we also have design guidelines to go with it. So if the person says, well, you can do lots of things, but it has to look kind of like this, then you have to be able to tell them what the kind of like this is. At this point, I believe it would be only commercial properties or business properties, multifamily. We won't want to try to tell somebody that they can't build their house or whatever they want it to. I'm personally a big fan of mid-century modern things. So when they say, you know, come in here and make everything look colonial, that's not what I really want. But I think that we do want the buildings to have some kind of thematic look to them that is in keeping with whatever region of the town they are located. So I wanted to take a few minutes with you, tell you this was happening and get your overall opinion about it. And then secondly, if you have any examples of other communities, other things that when I say design guideline, what that kind of means to you, things that you would want to codify in a zoning ordinance. This would be like a call, an accompaniment to the zoning ordinance. So it wouldn't be law, it would be a guideline, but it would be what we would give to a developer. So if you want to come to Manlius, these are the kinds of things we're looking for.
Sarah, can I ask you a question? What was the kind of zoning it's changing to?
Form-based. Form. Thank you.
Sorry, Sarah, I still don't, did you say form, F-O-R-M?
Yeah, F-O-R-M. And kind of usually what it says is we don't care what's inside it as long as the outside it's this dimension and this kind of stories and this kind of look. And then you still have to manage the parking and you coming and going or any of those.
Which were the zones that you were looking to use that style for?
I think we're hoping we would kind of redo the zones that are currently the transitional and the RM would be subsumed into some medium level of zone, and then there'd be the commercial area. If that makes sense.
Would this extend to things like materials for site and planting pallets?
Yeah, it would be things like recommending that there be plantings between the parking and the road. It would recommend natural plant or native plants. It would recommend, it might recommend, say, gabled roofs or something like that. So those are the kinds of things that other people have done. You know, I think there's.
And you're looking for imagery, photographs of existing things or sections?
Yeah, Erin, if you want to look, the first appendix of the comprehensive plan has the photos that the original.
I remember those.
And we would, the design guidelines would have something similar to that. Just not saying it's prescriptive, but this is the type of look we're looking. So I don't know if people are familiar with that in any other communities. It's more common in sort of the New England area where they say they want everything to look like an old farmhouse. And people do it.
Doug, you have that into it, you know,
Not to that level.
but now they love.
No, into it, it's more like, well, yeah, but what the curbing standard, you know, standard would be, what the driveway width should be. There's, you know, there's always this thing about slopes and what they're, you know, recommended, you know, slopes should be. And then the landscaping guidelines and species of trees. So what they're talking about here is really like quite a different thing.
But I think we would want to learn from it.
Yeah, I think the DeWitt design guidelines, if you want to look them up, they are online here. They're sound a little bit more like what you were talking about.
Yeah.
this is a very, like, right, setbacks, we don't really have setbacks. In this. But that would be more of the thing that I think, you know, would be helpful the way the code is now. Given that you share that with Sarah. To do it. Oh,
It's online.
It's
Oh,
online.
no, that,
And,
Hard to find, but it's there.
I mean, it's completed.
Yeah.
So it's.
It's hard to find, but
and
if you want to look.
we
I
have
can-
to click a couple times.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's under the site plan review. Application and then it's part of that.
Yeah.
But
I think that they're both
I'll send it
important.
to you. It's gonna be easy.
Having the things that we've talked about, or that I was hoping we could introduce, you know, in the year plus to come, with regards to materials and that kind of thing, I think is important. But I know what Sarah's talking about too, because I've worked with that myself in other towns, and it's really helpful for applicants to see the kind of flavor of thing that you're looking at. But it also is really helpful to have those sections that show the scale and the relationships of things to each other.
So I would also point into the Hamlet zoning district in DeWitt. And that's very much what you're talking about. Oh, you know, the code wise. You're trying to go much more districts, but and I was part of with the drafting of that code and people from the Hamlet, I mean, it takes a long time, right? Just like the but there are actual renderings, you know, well, it should have a peak or it should have this, that. And it seems to me that I think that in this more mixed use, there's a lot of different things you can do with the Hamlet as compared to other places in DeWitt. And I think we need to be careful about how it's if you go with this form-based zoning. Some places are taking kind to it, but you know, a lot of it more rural. But if there are specific areas, you know, like this is the shopping district. That would be a good place for form-based zoning.
Even the Hamlet, I mean, it really hasn't, you know, the Hamlet overlays haven't really been fully absorbed by the people in the area, right?
Yeah.
And you got several different hamlets, so every hamlet's a little bit different too.
I have a position sometimes about these things that it can get to be a little bit bland when everything is meant to look the same. When you come in and say, I want all the peak roofs and I want all this color palette and I want all this type of finish, you know, I think that sometimes it gets to be a little, I don't know, I'm not going to come up with the right word, but being a town and not having a village, sometimes it's better, I think, to see things in their individual, be true to their individual style, rather than come in and put a fake facade on a building to make it look a certain way. Why not, if you're renovating a building, you know, because I think I'd like to encourage people to do that. Come in and you renovate it to be true to the style that it was built in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be bad to have buildings of different eras and styles near each other, because that's kind of, it shows the development of a community, rather than coming in and saying, well, I'm going to make everything have the same facade and the same style and all that kind of stuff. You know, I don't necessarily think that that ends up being better.
I would support that, Erin, and I think that's it. That's where we're struggling. We want to hear those comments so we don't go too far down the road about everything being vanilla.
It'd be just that more it's a line for you, but not too many years ago, just years ago, there was a revision to the design guidelines where the overarching principles of the design guidelines were set forth so people could understand, like, it wasn't just that you want granite curve, just so we wanted so many inches of this and that, and just, you know, it talks about sightseeing pedestrian center. Blah, 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 access, bicycle, streetscapes, enhance, historic resources. This was one that architects did. Architectural design is encouraged to respond to local history, topography, and climate, as well as vernacular building practice, which I believe, Aaron, with what they were saying, like, it needs to be true to itself. That was what was described to me. And I, it's like if you're trying to think about the overarching principles. What are your overarching principles? And once you get those, 'cause these actually came later.
Mhm.
But then you can start saying they are, but that would be a suggestion. I would have. I'm interested in this form-based zoning. It's not the way we grew up in New York, in zoning law. So I'm interested. I'm open to
Should be
being
fun.
modern, right?
Thank you. This will be, a 2-year process. So you have plenty of other opportunities to engage with.
2-year process for the design guidelines or for the zoning.
The zoning code for sure.
Yeah.
The design guidelines will march alongside.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Are we still willing
Thanks,
to
Sarah.
do any of those things with regards to the stuff that I had asked about last time? Is that going to be able to be part of it?
You mean the more specific
Yeah,
items? Yeah, I think so.
okay. I just wanted to make sure.
So Aaron, and there you go. Don't speak up too often.
Thanks, Erin.
Anybody else have anything on the agenda? What's on Richard? Well, I will entertain that, so just, we need a second.
I'll thank you.
Valerie second. All in favor?
So much tonight.
Thank you all for your patience.
Thank you, Aaron.
See you, Aaron.
Have a good night. Right. Folks, we stand adjourned. We out.